The night after the news broadcast aired, my life changed in a way I didn't expect. For months, I'd been buried under silence, ignored, dismissed, treated like I was crazy for standing up to them. But the moment my story hit Channel 9, that silence exploded. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Texts, calls, voicemails, notifications piling up like static. Neighbors I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly calling me brave. Even my old boss from Denver left a message saying he was proud. For a moment, I almost smiled. Almost. Then came the message that froze everything. It wasn't long or dramatic, just 7 words that sent a chill straight down my spine. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. No name, no number, just a blocked call, and that single line sitting in my voicemail, looping over and over in my head. Lydia, my attorney, called 10 minutes later. She didn't sound surprised, just sharp, focused. "Don't go anywhere alone," she said. "These people are staring down prison time. They're dangerous." Her tone made it clear she wasn't exaggerating. She'd seen what the Whitmores and their associates were capable of. "They're cornered animals now," she added. "That's when they lash out." I locked every door and window that night, left the lights on in every room, and kept my phone by my bed. I didn't sleep, just watched the clock crawl past 2 a.m., 3, then 4. Outside, the wind dragged through the pine trees, the kind of sound that used to soothe me. Now it felt like breathing, someone else's breathing, just beyond the glass. 2 days later, my fear turned into proof. When I got home from the grocery store, the front door was wide open. Not cracked, open. I froze on the porch. I knew I'd locked it that morning. My first thought wasn't even logical. It was, how long have they been inside? I didn't move. My hands shook as I dialed the sheriff's office, my voice breaking as I explained the situation. Deputy Torres and his partner showed up in less than 5 minutes, lights flashing across the trees. They went in first, guns drawn. I stood outside, heart pounding, every second feeling like an hour. When they finally called me in, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Nothing seemed stolen, nothing broken. The fridge door was still closed, my laptop still on the counter. But then I saw it. A single sheet of white paper sat in the middle of the kitchen table. Just a few words typed across it. "Drop it or lose everything. No signature, no marks, no fingerprints, according to Torres later. Just a message. Clean, deliberate, and terrifyingly clear." Torres glanced up at me. "You got security cameras?" I nodded weakly. "Only the doorbell one." He sighed. "We'll pull the footage. But I'll be honest, if they know what they're doing, they probably covered it." He was right. The footage glitched right before the time I got home. A 5-minute blackout, just enough time for someone to slip in and out. That night, I sat on the couch, staring at the paper under an evidence bag. It felt heavier than it should have. Lydia called as soon as she heard. "That's witness tampering," she said flatly. "We're filing a motion first thing tomorrow." "They're not just scared. They're panicking." Her voice had changed, less calm, more dangerous. I could hear the fire behind every word. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. That night, I saw headlights pause outside my house twice. Both times I killed the lights and stood by the window, heart racing, trying to make out faces. Each time, the car rolled off slowly into the dark. By morning, fear had turned into something else, anger. My neighbor, Mrs. Howard, a retired librarian, who never missed a thing, came over holding a yellow sticky note. "I didn't know if it was important," she said, handing it to me. "But I wrote down a license plate number. There was a black Audi parked outside your place around midnight. The driver just sat there for 20 minutes. I stared at the note. The plate read KLM 4892. Deputy Torres ran it for me later that day. When he called back, his voice sounded different, serious, almost strained. "That car's registered to Apex Investigations," he said. "Private firm out of Boulder. Sound familiar?" It did. Too familiar. They were the same people who had cornered my son outside his workplace last month, pretending to be real estate agents, asking him questions about me. That was the moment something in me snapped. I wasn't running anymore. I met Lydia that evening at her office downtown. She looked exhausted, but when she saw the photos of the note and heard the details, she just nodded slowly. "Good," she said. "They just handed us exactly what we needed." I frowned. "You mean the threat?" "No," she said, eyes hard. "The proof that they're desperate. It means they know they've lost control." We sat there for hours reviewing documents, piecing together the timeline. Every forged title, every fake complaint, every email. For months, the Whitmores had used intimidation to keep people silent. Now that silence was cracking open, and the noise inside it was going to bury them. Still, fear lingered. That night, I triple-checked every lock, slept with my phone in my hand, and kept the porch light on till dawn. I wanted to believe what Lydia said, that their panic meant they were close to breaking. But paranoia doesn't vanish overnight. The next morning, I found fresh tire tracks cutting across the gravel near my fence. I hadn't had visitors. Someone had been there again. I walked out with my camera and took pictures. My hands didn't shake this time. Maybe I was numb, or maybe I was done being scared. I emailed them to Torres, then sat down with a cup of coffee that had gone cold before I could drink it. That's when the phone buzzed again. Another blocked number. This time, a text. "We warned you." I didn't even reply. I just took a screenshot and sent it straight to Lydia and Torres. Lydia texted back 2 minutes later. "We're escalating this. Today." By noon, there was a patrol car parked across the street. I didn't ask for it, but it made me feel something I hadn't felt in a while. Safe. Just enough to breathe again. That night, I sat on my porch as the sun went down, the sky burning orange over the ridge. I thought about my grandfather, who built this land with his hands. How proud he'd be to know I was fighting for it. But I also thought about how easy it would be to walk away, to sell, to move, to never look back. Then I looked at that evidence. Bag on the table through the window, the one holding the threat note, and I knew. They wanted fear. They wanted silence. They wanted me gone. But I wasn't going anywhere. When Lydia called later that evening, her voice carried something new. Resolve. "Dakota," she said, "I've filed motions for witness tampering and protective order. We'll bring this to the judge in the morning. You've done everything right. Don't blink now." And for the first time in months, I didn't. Because if they were breaking into my home, if they were sending messages, watching me, following me, that only meant one thing. They were terrified. Terrified of what I could prove. Terrified of the truth finally coming out. And that fear, for once, didn't belong to me. Morning came with a gray sky and the kind of silence that only exists before something big happens. I barely slept, but I was done hiding. The patrol car was still parked across the street when I stepped outside. The deputy waved, coffee in hand. It was strange, comforting and unnerving at the same time, to realize my house had become evidence in a case bigger than me. Lydia called as I backed out of the driveway. "Get here early," she said. "We've got movement." Her voice was brisk, but underneath it I could hear something electric, hope. When I reached her office, she already had files stacked across the table like dominoes ready to fall. She didn't bother with small talk. "The title company flipped," she said. "Rocky Mountain Title just confessed they were bribed. We have payment records, emails, even recorded calls. Preston Whitmore personally wired them $50,000 to process fake deeds." I just stared at her. For months, every door had been slammed in our faces, every official pretending it was a misunderstanding. Now it was real, tangible. "That means we can nail them for fraud," Lydia continued. "And with the threat note and the text messages, we can add witness intimidation." She slid a document across to me. "A subpoena list. More than a dozen names, code enforcement officers, title agents, even a former HOA board member who decided to talk. "Trial's in 3 days," she said. "They'll try to settle." "Don't. We need this public." I nodded, and for the first time in months, my fear started to feel like fuel. The courthouse in Boulder felt colder than I remembered. Marble floors, metal detectors, the echo of footsteps bouncing off high ceilings. News vans already lined the curb. Channel 9, Channel 13, even a blogger I recognized from social media. Inside, people whispered as I walked in. Homeowners from my subdivision, people who'd once crossed the street to avoid me, now sat in rows, eyes full of hope and dread. I wasn't just fighting for my land anymore. I was fighting for theirs, too. Lydia stood beside me in her charcoal suit, calm as stone. Across the aisle sat Preston Whitmore, his wife Cassandra, and 3 attorneys who looked like they'd been printed from the same smug template. Preston smirked when he saw me, like the last few months hadn't happened. When the judge entered, the room stilled. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. Lydia rose first. "Your Honor," she began, "this case isn't about confusion or paperwork. It's about theft, the kind done in boardrooms, not alleys. My client, Dakota Reed, built his life on land that was his grandfather's before him. The defendant stole it, on paper, in silence, believing no one would notice." Her words hit like a hammer. She paced slowly, letting each sentence hang. Then she held up a blown-up email, the ink so large you could read it from the back row. "We can get away with it. The county's records are outdated anyway." "Preston Whitmore." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Preston's lawyer jumped up to object, but the judge motioned him down. Lydia continued, laying out exhibits, bank transfers, fake HOA notices, maps marked with falsified boundaries. When she sat down, my palms were slick with sweat, but I felt something shift in the air. People were listening now. The defense opened with excuses. They blamed clerical errors, oversights, even me, claiming I had misunderstood administrative filings. But Lydia dismantled each argument with calm precision. Then came witnesses. Former county clerk admitted he'd been pressured to expedite the new plat maps. A notary confessed that her signature on 3 documents wasn't hers. Each testimony tightened the noose around the Whitmore's empire. At one point, Lydia whispered to me, "Watch Preston's hands." They trembled every time an email surfaced. By the second afternoon, his confidence had evaporated. When Lydia began her cross-examination, the whole courtroom leaned forward. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, "you claimed you believed the land was unowned. Yet here's an email where you wrote, 'Dakota Reed doesn't have the money to fight this.' That's not confusion, that's calculation, isn't it?" He stammered, I don't recall writing that." "Then let me refresh your memory," Lydia said, pressing play on the recorded call we'd obtained. His own voice filled the room. "Take his fence down. The longer we drag this out, the cheaper it'll get." Gasps. Even the judge leaned forward. For the next 2 hours, Lydia took him apart, line by line, lie by lie. Every time he tried to spin a story, she had a document waiting. Cassandra's face went pale. She wouldn't meet his eyes. When the session adjourned for the day, the gallery buzzed like a hive. Reporters chased Lydia outside, cameras flashing. I stayed back, numb, watching Preston's team pack up in silence. One of his lawyers muttered as they passed, "This isn't over." Maybe not, but for the first time, I could see the cracks forming. That night, I sat in my truck outside the courthouse, watching the sunset fade behind the mountains. My phone vibrated, a message from my son. "Proud of you, Dad. Keep going." I didn't realize I was crying until I saw the reflection in the windshield. The final day of trial was the longest day of my life. The courtroom was standing room only. Channel 9 had gone live. I saw homeowners clutching each other's hands in the gallery. Some brought their kids. Lydia started her closing argument softly, almost too softly. "We teach our children that stealing is wrong. We tell them that honesty matters. But what happens when adults in suits decide they're above those rules?" She pointed to the giant map on the screen, the 40 acres the Whitmores had tried to claim. "This isn't just dirt. It's homes, memories, futures. And the defendants knew exactly what they were taking." Then her voice rose, steady and sharp. Justice isn't measured by who can afford the best lawyer. It's measured by truth. And the truth, Your Honor, is written all over these documents. When she sat down, the room was silent. Even the air felt still. The defense tried one last Hail Mary, accusing me of falsifying my grandfather's deed. Lydia was ready. She held up the original document, yellowed and fragile, stamped by the county recorder in 1971. "It's funny," she said, "how the people who commit fraud are always the first to cry forgery." Even the judge smirked. By mid-afternoon, testimony was over. The judge called a recess before her ruling. I stepped outside into the sunlight, half blinded by the sudden brightness. Reporters swarmed me, microphones thrust forward. "Dakota, how do you feel? Do you think they'll be convicted? What will you do if you win?" I just said, "We'll see," and kept walking. The only person I wanted to talk to was Lydia. She was leaning against the courthouse steps, arms crossed, watching the clouds roll in. "You did good," she said quietly. "You did better," I replied. We didn't need to say more. We'd fought for months, endured threats, humiliation, even fear for our lives. Whatever came next, I knew we'd given everything we had. When court resumed, the tension was suffocating. Judge Ramirez shuffled her papers, eyes scanning the room. You could hear every breath, every chair creak. "After reviewing the evidence and testimony," she began, "this court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Mr. Reed, on all counts: fraud, trespass, and harassment." The words echoed like thunder. I didn't move. I just stared at her, making sure I'd heard right. She continued, her tone firm. "Furthermore, the defendants are ordered to pay all legal fees, return all property deeds, and are referred for federal investigation regarding potential racketeering charges." Someone behind me gasped. Lydia's hand gripped my arm. I still couldn't breathe. Preston Whitmore slumped forward, face drained of color. Cassandra whispered something to him, but he didn't look up. Reporters rushed out the door, calling producers, breaking the story live. When the judge adjourned, the room erupted, people crying, hugging, clapping. I just stood there, frozen. Lydia turned to me and smiled for the first time in months. "You won, Dakota," she said softly. "It's over." But as I looked around, at the homeowners, the lawyers, the flashing cameras, I realized something important. It wasn't over. Not yet, because winning in court was one thing. Fixing what they'd broken, that would take something bigger. Still, as I stepped outside and felt the cold air hit my face, I let myself breathe, really breathe, for the first time since that first threat appeared on my phone. The sky above Boulder was turning gold, the kind of light that makes everything look new. And in that moment, I finally believed it. Justice had found its way through. When I woke up the morning after the verdict, the world felt quieter. No constant knot in my chest. No fear that a black SUV would be waiting outside my house. Just sunlight spilling through the blinds and the sound of birds on the fence. Lydia's text came in first. "Judge's written ruling is out. Check your email. Congratulations." My hands shook as I opened the PDF. 18 pages, single-spaced, stamped by the Boulder County Court. The first line stopped me cold. The defendants engaged in a calculated, systematic scheme to defraud Dakota Reed of his lawful property through false adverse possession claims, bribery and misrepresentation. I read it again and again. It was real. I'd won. The order restored full ownership of my 47 acres, awarded $4.2 million in damages, and ordered the defendants to pay all legal fees. But what made me exhale wasn't the money. It was a single sentence halfway down the page. The court refers this matter to the United States Attorney's Office for criminal prosecution. They were finally going to face consequences. By afternoon, the story was everywhere. Local man wins against corrupt developers. Community justice in Boulder. Channel 9 ran the clip of me standing outside the courthouse, saying, "My grandfather taught me one thing: don't let the bastards take what's yours." The video hit 2 million views in 12 hours. My inbox filled with messages, strangers thanking me, neighbors apologizing, reporters asking for interviews. Even my boss, Martin, sent an email. "Come back Monday. We're proud to have you." But the message that hit hardest came from a blocked number at 7:15 p.m. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life. No name, no context, just that." I forwarded it to Lydia. She called within seconds. "Don't go anywhere alone," she warned. "They're looking at prison time now. Desperate people do desperate things." She was right. 2 days later, I came home from the grocery store and noticed my front door slightly open. I'd locked it. I was sure of it. My throat tightened as I stepped back onto the porch and dialed 911. Deputy Torres arrived within minutes, lights flashing. 2 more units followed. They swept the house, kitchen, living room, every closet. Nothing was stolen. But someone had been there. On my kitchen table sat a single sheet of paper. 5 words, typed in block letters: "Drop it or lose everything." Torres bagged it as evidence. "They're trying to scare you," he said. "Don't give them that power. I wanted to believe him." But fear has a way of echoing long after the sirens fade. 2 hours later, a knock startled me. It was Carol, my 70-year-old neighbor. She looked uneasy, clutching a sticky note. "Dakota, I saw a black Audi SUV parked outside your house yesterday. A man in a suit walked up your driveway. He stayed about 10 minutes, then drove off. It felt off, so I wrote down the plate." I handed the note to Torres. He ran it. The car was registered to Apex Investigations, the private firm run by Thomas Brennan, the same investigator who'd stalked my son months ago. Torres sighed. "Breaking and entering is a felony, but proving it's them is tough. Stay somewhere else for a few days." That night, I slept on my daughter Emma's couch, a baseball bat propped against the wall, phone plugged in beside me. 3 days later, Lydia called. Her voice was different, relieved. Rocky Mountain Title flipped completely. "They've agreed to cooperate. They admitted taking bribes from Preston. We have their bank transfers, emails, everything." I sank back on the couch. "So, we really got them." "We really got them," she said. "Their lawyers called this morning begging for a settlement. I told them no deal. We'll see them in court." That night, I looked out the apartment window at snow falling softly on Fort Collins. Somewhere out there, Cassandra and Preston were watching everything crumble. And I realized something. Justice wasn't just about punishment. It was about balance. Trial day came like a storm. I wore the same suit from the first hearing, still tight across the shoulders. Emma rode with me, hand on my arm the whole drive. The courthouse parking lot was chaos. Reporters, cameras, neighbors. Inside, courtroom 3C was full. I recognized Sarah Chen, the teacher who'd called me crying months ago, sitting 3 rows back. Cassandra sat at the defense table, pristine in a cream-colored suit. Her hands trembled when she reached for her water glass. Preston sat beside her, jaw tight, staring straight ahead. When the judge entered, the room went still. "This is a court of law," she warned. "Not a circus. Anyone who disrupts proceedings will be removed." Then Lydia rose for her opening statement. Her voice carried like thunder. "Your Honor, this case is about theft, not with masks or guns, but with contracts and corruption. Dakota Reed inherited this land fair and legal. When he couldn't visit for 3 years, the defendants saw an opportunity. They built on his property, bribed officials, falsified documents, and destroyed his peace of mind. And when he fought back, they threatened him. But what they didn't know is that he kept every receipt." The room erupted in whispers. Lydia turned, looking directly at Cassandra. "We have the emails, the payments, the bribes. We're not asking for mercy. We're asking for justice." I felt the whole courtroom lean forward, like the air itself was waiting for the next line. By evening, it was over. The judge ruled swiftly, full ownership restored to me, over $4 million in damages, and the defendants referred for criminal prosecution. Preston was later indicted on 6 counts of fraud. Cassandra pleaded guilty to avoid prison. 3 years probation, $500,000 in restitution, and a lifetime ban from Colorado real estate. The title company lost its license. Their attorney resigned in disgrace. The news called it the Ridgeline Heights scandal. For a week, I couldn't walk into a coffee shop without someone thanking me for standing up. But deep down, something still bothered me. There were still 96 families living on that land, families who had bought homes in good faith. They weren't criminals. They were collateral damage. And now, technically, I owned their houses. I could have sold everything, made millions. But I thought of my grandfather's voice again. Land isn't about profit, it's about legacy. So I called Lydia. I want to hold a meeting, I told her, for everyone living on the property. We met 2 weeks later in the half-finished clubhouse Cassandra had promised the neighborhood. 96 families crammed inside. Some looked scared, others angry. Sarah Chen stood in front holding her daughter's hand. I stepped up to the mic. My throat felt dry. I know you're scared. You bought your homes in good faith. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm not here to take from you. I'm here to fix what they broke. The room fell silent. I took a deep breath. I'm transferring ownership of all 96 homes to a new nonprofit, the Ridgeline Heights Community Trust. Every family keeps their home at the original price you paid. If you've already finished paying, it's yours free and clear. If not, you finish payments to the trust, 0 interest, someone gasped. Then applause started. Faint at first, then building. People were crying, hugging, cheering. I smiled, blinking back tears. The trust will use your payments to maintain roads, cover taxes, and create a scholarship fund for local kids. My grandfather believed in giving back. This is his legacy now. An older man, Mr. Rodriguez, came up afterward, his hand shaking as he gripped mine. You're a good man, he said. Your grandfather raised you right. 6 months later, the William Reed Memorial Scholarship launched. $10,000 a year for Colorado students studying forestry, engineering, or environmental science. Emma helped me set it up. She said Grandpa would have been proud. I kept 5 acres for myself, the northern section with old pines Grandpa never logged. I built a small cabin there, 2 bedrooms, a porch that caught the morning light. Moved in that October. Now I wake to birdsong and coffee on the porch. Deer graze near the fence. On weekends, Tyler visits. Emma comes with her boyfriend, a law student naturally. Even my ex-wife, Jennifer, stopped by once with her new husband. She said she was proud of me. Strange words, but they felt good. On my fridge hangs a crayon drawing from Sarah Chen's daughter, a stick figure labeled Mr. Dakota, holding a giant deed under a blue sky. I think about Grandpa's note sometimes. Don't let the bastards take what's yours. He was right. But I've learned something more. What's mine isn't just land. It's peace. It's community. It's knowing that 96 families sleep safely because I didn't quit. That's the real kind of justice, the kind that heals. So if you're listening to this story right now, ask yourself, have you ever been pushed, cornered, or cheated by someone who thought money made them untouchable? Tell your story in the comments. Let's build something real. Because sometimes standing your ground doesn't just save your home. It saves a whole community. And remember, keep your receipts, all of them.